Now we'll discuss perception. Newborns have a very keen sense of smell, taste, and touch. When it comes to smell, infants respond positively to pleasant smells and negatively to unpleasant smells. They can also smell and recognize mama's milk, breast milk. Newborns have a highly developed sense of taste as well. They prefer sweet to bitter and sour tastes. Again, mama's milk has a sweetness to it, so newborns can recognize changes in mama's milk. They also kind of have a sweet tooth because they prefer that sweetness. Infants are also sensitive to touch, and they respond reflexively when touched. Think about the grasping reflex. If you put your finger in a little infant's hand, they'll typically grasp it. And the infant's nervous system is indeed capable of transmitting pain as well. It's their perceptual skills that really prepare the newborn and young babies to learn about the world around them. So their sense of smell and touch help them recognize their mothers. Their sense of smell and taste help them in learning to eat. When a baby is in pain, typically they'll let you know for sure with a very sudden, high-pitched wail, and they're difficult to soothe. But being able to experience that pain is actually adaptive because it can help keep the baby safe. Almost all research on early perceptual development focuses on hearing and vision, though. So we'll talk more about babies' ability to hear and discriminate between different sounds when we talk about language development. But there are a few key milestones that we should talk through. Babies can hear. They respond to sounds in their surroundings. They're sensitive to noise. That's why when the baby is born on that day, the baby's hearing is tested in the hospital. Infants their hearing actually begins developing in utero. I don't know how many of you have ever had babies, but lots of times you can you can download an app to let you know when your baby is, how far along they're developing and what they're doing when they're in utero. So I remember when I was pregnant with Lenny, he's my first son, I had downloaded the app. I was so excited. It's my first baby. And I still remember the date. It was December 4th when it told me on the app, okay, now he can hear. And so I had vowed to myself that by December 4th, I was going to stop swearing. That never actually happened, but I'm working on it. So infants, they can hear sounds. They can hear sounds that have pitches, usually in the range of human speech. They hear those sounds the best, and they can distinguish different sounds and use sounds to locate objects in space. They're more sensitive to higher frequencies early in life, but they do become more sensitive to lower frequency sounds as they get older. It's really interesting too. Infants can recognize their mother's voice. Even newborns, when they're still in the hospital, what you see is an infant's heart rate will increase at the sound of mom's voice and not other voices, which is pretty cool. Infants are also sensitive to music. They can actually distinguish different musical sounds. They can remember songs even. So that's why sometimes, like on those apps, again, they'll tell you, like, pick a lullaby and sing that to your baby when you're pregnant with them, because they can eventually remember those songs. Even by 4 to 7 months, we see that babies have a sense of musical phrasing. So if you take a Mozart minuet, for example, and you chunk it up, so on maybe CD A, you have breaks between phrases, musical phrases, and on CD B, you break it off in the middle of a musical phrase. If you play both for the baby will clearly prefer CD A. So that's really cool. By the end of the first year, infants can even recognize the same melody when it's played in different keys. So they prefer pleasant more than unpleasant melodies, and they can even remember songs. When it comes to vision, a newborn's visual acuity is actually pretty poor, but by 1 year old, an infant can see as well as an adult with normal vision. Since the various elements of the visual system are well developed at birth, they can respond to light and track moving objects. The development, so infants at 1 month see at 20 feet what adults see at 200 to 400 feet. The development of color vision seems to be complete by about 3 to 4 months of age. And so part of this has to do with the infant's cones. So newborns perceive very few colors, but by 3 to 4 months, they are able to perceive those colors. So if you watch the link that I showed you, it's actually only a few seconds. It's like 30 seconds, but it's really cool because it's going to show you the progression of vision development for a newborn. Also, the other thing I wanted to tell you was if you think about babies' toys, if you guys have ever shopped for toys for a newborn, a lot of times now they have toys that are black and white, like they'll have mobiles that are black and white. And part of this is because it's higher contrast then for that baby. They can't see the colors anyway before 3 to 4 months. And so having that black and white, they're actually able to see that a little bit better. Okay, so next you guys need to know about the visual cliff task. So the visual cliff consists of, and I also have a video that you should watch on this as well. The visual cliff consists of a raised platform with a pattern on it. It's set on top of a patterned floor. Plexiglass is placed level over the whole apparatus, and then the baby is set on top of the plexiglass. So babies who have just begun crawling will actually readily crawl over the entire sheet of plexiglass. But infants who have experienced crawling, they'll crawl over the shallow side, but they're not going to crawl over the deeper side. So this suggests that at some point they have perceived that there is a drop. So one question to ask then is, why won't the experienced crawlers go over the drop-off? Is it because they're afraid of heights, or is it because of depth perception? So the prevailing thought for many years was actually that all of a sudden babies become afraid of heights because they have experience with falling when they're crawling. But what we know now is it's actually more about depth perception. So the visual cliff task is used to test depth perception. And this is what this video talks about. Plus there's some really cute babies in there, so it's a fun video to watch. Depth perception is the ability to judge the distance of objects from one another and from ourselves. So it helps babies understand the layout of their environment. It helps them understand, how far away am I from mom? As we talked about earlier, it helps guide motor activity. I mean, if you think your hand is 6 inches from your mouth, but it's really a foot from your mouth, you're going to end up missing your chance at a Cheerio. But if it's about a foot away and you think it's only 6 inches away, you might end up hitting yourself in the face. So this is why depth perception is so important. Infants can see, so it's also important to note what attracts their attention. So what we see is that infants really love faces. Part of the reason infants love faces is because they're concentric and they also have some curvature to them. So it's also adaptive for babies to like faces because it's people who are going to help keep babies safe. So there's lots of interest in face processing, and this is because it's so important to understand how we interact with other humans. So faces involve these regions of contrast. They're fairly curvilinear and they're fairly concentric. So this is a study here at the bottom of the screen right here, you can see. This is a study that was done on newborns, actually hours-old newborns, and they showed these newborns these different faces. So Here they would show them this face versus this face, and they would look at like looking time as well as heart rate as an indicator of which face the baby preferred. So in this first one, which one do you think they preferred? This one. They preferred the first face. Here, which one did they prefer? They clearly preferred this one. And then here, they clearly preferred this face. So the preference for faces over face-like stimuli also supports the view that infants are innately attracted to faces. Younger infants perceive faces, and this is something that is unique to humans.